Welcome to our last session. Food and agriculture face systematic changes driven by consumer centricity and planet-friendly initiatives. We have discussed today that consumer food preferences and eating behaviors are changing from a commodity-driven supply chain focused on scale to a personalized and value-added food and connected agriculture ecosystems. For today's last session, it is an honor to present Chef Tom Hunt from EcoChef, Chef Juanma from El Cielo Hospitality Group, and Joanna Broomfield from Root the Future to tell us how an old world ingredient is making its way onto innovative plates across the world. Welcome, Tom. Come in.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Over the next 10 minutes, we're going to explore what food means to us and how, with love, we can use it as a tool to reconnect with our friends, family, and even nature. Love is a family meal, the deep adoration between a grandparent and grandchild. Love is commitment, trust, and compromise. These are all beautiful ways of thinking about our connection with food. So let's start at home with family. Two words I reach for when I'm thinking about family are care and reciprocity. We can give back to nature simply by eating or procuring better food. Food that has been farmed in harmony with nature. Food that regenerates biodiversity from the critters in the soil right up through the food chain to the bugs, the birds, and the bees that fly in the sky. So what if, as Kimera says in Braiding Sweetgrass, if you can give thanks for what you've been given and even give a gift in reciprocity for what you have taken, the earth will last forever. If we're going to protect ourselves from climate change, we need system change. The food system is one of, if not the biggest of our problems. It's therefore our biggest opportunity. With it, we can create powerful systemic change, even as individuals, but as businesses and corporations, our impact grows exponentially with the number of mouths that we feed. For example, food waste is a key issue within our food system. However, it's also a huge opportunity to create new value chains as we transition to a circular economy. In the last century, we've lost 94% of our seed diversity, and along with it, a lot of our wildlife. Biodiversity is a key word within this debate, and it's causing major disruption within the industry. It's causing chefs to rethink how they eat and activists and individuals to eat better. So now, this is the crux and keystone of my work. I believe when we act with love, care and reciprocity, food has the power to reconnect us with nature and regenerate our planet. Just like the best relationships, we don't just take, we give back. So love is care and reciprocity. What else? Love is facing challenges. When I was 10, we moved to the countryside where I inherited 2 goats, Boot and Cassie. For all my sins at 10, it was my daily duty, pleasure and pride to milk these goats before school every day, come rain or shine. And in England, in the dead of winter, that is not easy. I'm not going to lie. In our new home, our parents gave us a veg plot, 4 by 4 meters squared. And being a somewhat lazy or maybe efficient child, I decided to grow a field of peas, and nothing but peas. Months later, as spring turned to summer, and I harvested them, I remember to this day taking them from the vines, opening them, watching them fall to the floor as I tried to put handfuls into my mouth because they were so utterly delicious and sweet, a perfect expression of nature. And I'm not sure I've had such an orgasmic, leguminous experience since. And how can we talk about what love is without orgasmic leguminous experiences? I didn't realize at the time, but caring for those goats and peas were my first lessons in the true value of food. What about the unique love between a grandparent and grandchild? Grandma's house, where the rules are different, where memories are made. By a show of hands, who here enjoyed cooking with their grandparents or a loved one when they were a child? I know I did. And I'm sure it's a cliche, but my time spent cooking with my grandma, flipping pancakes, baking cakes, and eating roast dinner around the table every Sunday is one of the main reasons I cook today. My grandma expressed her love to us through the food she put on our table. This is one of my daughter's favorite cartoons. She loves baking with her grandma too. She's very opinionated and she eats what she wants, but I'm sure you'll be incredibly happy to hear that beans are actually her favorite food. And I'm not saying that, it's totally true. I'm not just saying it because I'm here, you know. So what happens when we keep these family traditions into our adulthood? In the UK, we don't cook at home as much. And we don't share meals around the table as much as we used to. But when we continue these traditions, we build communities, not just between our friends and families, but through a food web that connects us with our local and global producers. So love is companionship. Over the last 10 years, I've realized I'm not alone. There's professionals from every discipline reaching similar conclusions, emphasizing the importance of food and farming and its impact on the environment. And these people are offering food system reform, nature connectedness, and similar ideas as key solutions. Even scientists. So in 2011, Tristram's team invited me to create a feast out of food waste on Southwark Bridge in London. This event changed my life. It empowered me to start making a difference, even as an individual. I knew that I could have an impact. When I first watched this TED Talk by Carolyn Steele, it gave me goosebumps. In it, she describes how we've lost touch with the true value of food and nature. Realizations I've had through my work in food waste. Food policy professor here at the Lancet conference is a key leader in food sustainability. He also helped me work on my book, cross-referencing it with his sustainable diets table, making sure that I was able to stand up to academic scrutiny, and I'm very proud to say that I have. So, love is also supporting one another and being open to change. But it's not just academics and scientists who are showing an interest in our food systems. Across Europe and the world, people's interest in food sustainability topics are driving their decisions from corporate boardrooms to the home kitchen. Sustainability is in the mainstream. At a top level, look at how these chefs are mimicking nature through their food presentation, using more natural plant-based ingredients. Dishes like this one, the larger picture, is a dish by Chef Raymond Blanc at Le Manoir Quatre Saisons in the UK. He's leading the way. And the other one here is from Chef Tony Kostian at Gron at the top right. This is a new chef in Helsinki that I've just discovered, and I cannot wait to go and eat his food. It looks remarkable. Each dish that he shows is an expression of nature. Chefs do this, I think, partly because they have this addiction to real produce, seasonal produce, and learning more and more about it and how and where it comes from. So beans are already seen as a key sustainable protein by most plant-forward chefs and eaters. And with added pressure of key global initiatives like Paul Newnham's Beans is How campaign, which keeps getting mentioned for good reasons, is making beans cool again. So of course these restaurants wouldn't exist without galvanizing the public. Slide. And the public are changing their behavior with clear aspirations to eat for the planet. In this global sustainability study, they say consumers send a clear signal. Sustainability will continue to become the expectation rather than the exception. And these trends can be seen through people's interest in seasonal food, box schemes, recipe boxes, farmers' markets, beans, plant-based protein. Here's the Zukunft Institute's food trend map for 2023. Isn't it fascinating that with a little imagination, pulses fit within most of these trends? And I think this is because sustainability is the overarching trend. And should we even be calling it a trend? Because really it's the new normal. A UK company, other than Bold Beans, who I truly admire, I think stand out above the rest in the UK through their love of beans. They've created an entirely new market for UK-grown dried fava beans. Before Hodmedod's, the majority, if not all of dried fava beans, was sold for export or even animal feed. Now Hodmedod's have a huge array of these incredible heritage beans, grains, and pseudo-cereals. I think they're successful because of their transparent, sustainable practices and evangelical belief in beans. Combine that with their generosity for teaching people how to cook this once forgotten ingredient, and you've got a recipe for success. So here's some of the recipes on their website, including, I think, a rather delicious looking quinoa and fava bean meatball. So although cooking has seen a downward trend over the last 50 years in the UK, research from Mintel is suggesting that it's now on the rise and will continue to rise over the next 5 years. That's from scratch cooking, which is a revelation to hear as a chef, food writer, and journalist. So, in conclusion, I believe that we're seeing a paradigm shift within the industry. In Europe and globally, a shared purpose and belief in good food is driving people to seek out sustainable and natural food products they can trust. And of course, that means beans. So next time you think about food, whether it's for business or pleasure, think about your food memories, your grandparents and ancestors, and the hundreds of communities and perhaps millions of tables that you are connected to through your food web. Think about how you can deepen your connections with Earth and support our planet simply by falling in love with food again. Thanks for listening. Lots of love. I'd now like to hand over to Juanma. Welcome.
So, I'm a chef. I'm from here, from Medellin. Some of you were in my hotel last night. I hope you enjoyed. I started my business when I was 23. Now we have El Cielo in Medellin, in Bogota, in Miami, and in Washington, D.C. What we do is we research in Colombian tradition food and ingredients and recipes, and then we transform them through creativity and innovation, creating around 70,000 menus, tasting menus per year in our 4 restaurants. So we create different dishes inspiring in all Colombian flavors, and also some of the local flavors where we are, like for example in Washington we have a lot of ingredients from Virginia, from Maryland, and in Miami we have a lot of ingredients from the sea and also from farms all over Florida. So we mix with Colombian ingredients and we create these tasting menus. 3 years ago, we were speaking with the U.S. Driving Council, and as I was telling you yesterday, I hated beans. I hated because in Medellin, they serve them like one way, and I didn't like them since I was a little kid, so I never ate beans in my life. And I have a prohibition to serve beans in the tasting kitchens. So we never tasted for almost 10 years any beans at El Cielo. So when my daughter was born, we decided to raise her vegan or plant-based. And I started studying about kids' nutrition and how where we're going to feed her the right way. So beans appear, and I say, no. I'll let the mother give her beans. I'll do some other recipes. And one day I say, like, I have to approach different types of beans, because at the end I was just approaching one or saying no to one bean. So then I started to taste these beans, and I say, if I'm in the business of creativity, I have to go all the way on the opposite, so that way I can start like in the opposite way. So normally beans are used in salty preparations, not in sweet preparations. So we started doing desserts with beans, and we started creating textures and investigating about beans in sweet preparations. And we arrived to Japan, where we find out that we weren't innovative at all, because they have been doing sweets with beans for almost thousands of years. So or hundreds of years. So we said, okay, let's approach the Japanese cuisine. Let's try to understand what they do, and let's try to do new techniques with the beans, starting from the composition of the bean, which one of the most powerful things that I wanted for my daughter and I need in my new recipes are proteins. So beans are high protein plant-based products, and so we started with an investigation of a lot of beans from many parts of America, from the US to all Mesoamerica, and we started creating new recipes. We started doing ice creams, we started doing cookies, and many things based on these investigations, creativity, and also in the tradition we have in the investigation of the Colombian tradition recipes. So we started doing some dishes like this white bean cracker. So what we do is we dehydrate or dehydrate white beans fresh, or we have drying beans. We do like a powder, and then we also take the water that has a lot of proteins, where we soak the beans, especially the white ones, and we use them with the flour of the white bean. Also, that water of the white beans, we use them to do meringues. And then we created a posta cartagenera, which is a very famous recipe. And we created this like small salty preparation with beans and pork. You tasted this one yesterday. We called it Feria de las Flores, and we did some bean puree with also, sometimes we serve it with pork, sometimes we don't. And we create like a newspaper edible with flowers, and you eat the whole cone. You tasted this yesterday, the tapioca with the bean puree. Sometimes we have them with black truffle. Sometimes we serve it just with the puree. This is actually very famous. This is the liquid buñuelo. So it's a liquid buñuelo where you bite it and it's completely liquid inside. So we do a black bean puree with truffle. Then we freeze it. Then we fry it. And then we cook it, and then we serve it. So it has a lot of steps, but it's not that difficult. This is the BeanCon. Also, we did it for you yesterday with the Jack Daniels and the pork foam. This is the meringue I was talking about. So we use the water that has a lot of proteins to stir it like egg whites, and we can create meringues with with sugar, and we can create desserts. This is a chocolate truffle bean. We also do chocolate bomb, like chocolate bonbons filled with different types of beans, with this bean purées that we find in Japan, but with Colombian and US beans that we find here and we supply. And in the menus, we also have a lot of desserts. So once we have the first one we did for this conference, and we put it in the menu, was a multi-texture bean dessert where we have 5 different types of beans, each one with different textures. One was an ice cream, one was like a pastry cream, the other one was a cracker, the other one was like a sherbet, and some other like dust, like crunchy. And we serve the whole bean, dessert as part of this investigation and immersion in beans that we have done in the last years. And finally, one of the first parts that I want to share with you, it's not in the presentation, but it's actually the first recipe I did and I shared it with you yesterday, is when I started tasting with beans. I wrote once a book that I was very hyperactive in school, and then I understand that kids have a lot of sugar before 8 a.m. Like they have waffles, they have simple syrup, they have a lot of ultra-processed ingredients in the day-to-day basis. So I wanted to beat that with my daughter. So I created, I called it a blue powder because my daughter's name is Azul. And I did a mix of roots, flowers of roots like papa, yuca, with a mixes of beans and other grains. I mixed all that and I stayed like 3 months trying to get to a point where I could just put water and have a waffle in the waffle maker. And when I achieved it, I started giving that, I call it magical waffle, to my daughter every morning with agave syrup. That way she went like with more than 20 different ingredients, including 12 grains. And in those 12 grains were around 6 different beans. So before 8 a.m., she was already packed with a lot of nutrients, minerals, vitamins, and many things that waffle had. And that was the first recipe I invented with beans, and I still gave her that. Now we do cookies and we do a lot of things with that. And once she eats that, she knows that if she eats that in the morning, she can have some junk food in the afternoon if it's plant-based. Thank you very much. I'm going to leave you with Joanna.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Okay, you can hear me. That's good. So my name's Joanna. I co-run a social enterprise in Thailand called Root the Future. Basically, our entire mission is to raise awareness and build excitement and get people talking about sustainability, and our main focus being on food, purely because this has the biggest impact of all. So basically, we use social media, we do festivals, we use entertainment, social campaigns to give people FOMO. We want people to feel like they're missing out if they're not a part of this movement. Okay. So from talking to people here at this conference over the last few days, it seems like the main challenge is not actually the beans themselves. The healthfulness, the sustainability, everything that you've heard of the beans actually speaks for itself. The challenge is reaching people with this information, getting people excited about beans, and of course, getting people to eat more beans. So I'm going to briefly talk about the history of bean use in Asia, and the most effective ways that we've found in Thailand with Root the Future to rebrand and remarket beans in Asia, and a little bit about the work that we've been doing with the US Dry Bean Council in Asia. So in Asia, you almost exclusively see beans used in sweet dishes. which I personally love. Black beans, for example, are often associated with sweet desserts like mooncakes, which is the second from the left, steamed buns in China and also across Asia. In Thailand, you can almost exclusively see beans used in sweet desserts, with the exception of mung beans, which are actually turned into glass noodles, which I think is amazing. But mung beans are also used more commonly in sweet desserts. So you can see on the left, there's sticky rice with black beans, which is basically sticky rice, black beans, coconut milk, and palm sugar. It's amazing and delicious, and cooked in banana leaves as well. It's like my favorite thing ever. And you can also find mung beans stuffed sticky rice crepes, ice desserts, which is kind of second from the right, and then the crepes are on the right there. You can see all the mung beans on the outside. But yeah, almost exclusively used in sweet dishes. Again, I am obsessed with all of these dishes. But yeah, usually black beans, kidney beans, and mung beans, most often mixed with coconut milk of some sort and palm sugar in some way. So there are some exceptions to this rule. We've got stink beans on the left there. I've not been brave enough to eat stink beans yet, but you can probably tell by the name, you can smell them from afar. And natto on the right. I realize soybeans don't technically count here, but thought it was a fun one to mention. They're fermented soybeans, and they create this kind of gooey, kind of bogey texture. A lot of people love it. I am not one of those people. So going back to the sweet bean dishes in Thailand, I personally love them, the Thai kanom and the desserts. But whenever I mention these to my friends, of the younger generation, they usually say that their grandmas and their grandfathers used to feed them these foods so often when they were younger that they don't really like them anymore. So the younger generation kind of associate beans with these sweet desserts that their grandparents feed them. And the interesting thing about beans in Asia and the traditional use of beans is that they're more often consumed by the older generation. And the older generation are generally seen to be the generation that are the most health conscious. So although the younger generation do associate bean dishes with their grandmas and grandpas, they also associate beans with health, which means we've already won half the battle. Whoops. Okay. So based on market research and what we've found through our social enterprise, health is a hugely important part of consumer demands in Asia, along with sustainability. And usually the key interest when we're talking about health is weight loss. Convenience is also a huge factor in Asia. In Thailand especially, you'll see the majority of people don't actually cook at home. If you go and look at some of the condos in Bangkok, there's basically no kitchen to be spoken of. There's no oven, no stove. It's usually just like a microwave. So getting people to soak and cook beans can be a tricky kind of thing to approach when people generally don't use their kitchens in the first place anyway. Affordability is another important factor in Thailand. Food is generally super cheap. Street food is really, really cheap, and minimum wages are quite low. And street food, again, is very cheap, very accessible. So most often, it's actually cheaper to eat out street food, smaller restaurants than it is to actually cook at home, especially if you don't have a kitchen. So this means a huge amount of power is actually in the hands of the restaurants and the food sellers, which is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. And of course, taste, tackling preconceptions about what beans are and what they taste like and what they can be is also a big part of the equation. The good news is these factors can be easily tackled with the help of marketing, partnerships, and collaborations. And I hate to say it, but social media plays such a huge part in this. KOLs and advertising plays a huge role in winning people over in Asia. People really trust influencers, key opinion leaders, and the KOLs really do a great job of getting information across in an effective and exciting way, which is another part of the challenge, at the same time as building hype. So it can be very valuable to partner with KOLs, influencers, celebrities. And social media on the whole just plays a huge part in reaching the younger generation, especially those who are kind of not a big fan of the sweet bean dishes because their grandparents have just overfed them these dishes. So purely at face value, if we think about product placements, sponsorships with celebrities, when they partner with like beauty brands, supplements, or even fashion brands, we can do the exact same thing, but with beans. And in this type of partnership, everybody wins, because obviously beans are super healthy, great for the environment. Next slide. So how can we reach people in the most effective way possible? At Root the Future, our mission is to raise awareness about sustainability, again, with the main focus being on food, with online and offline content, events, and campaigns. We strive to increase the consumption of plant-based foods, and of course, beans is a humongous part of this. We find the most effective way to reach people is to create buzz, hype, excitement via social media and utilizing KOLs, influencers, and celebrities. People really trust KOLs, influencers, and celebrities, especially in Asia. So using health and climate action as talking points via entertainment, social media, community campaigns, events, and collaborations is key. This is our formula for creating as much FOMO as possible. We really want people to feel like they're missing out on the newest and most exciting things if they aren't participating in these events and campaigns in some way. And these things just happen to be the healthiest and most sustainable. But what makes this so easy is the food. We want to make plant-based food and sustainability fun and trending and exciting. So using our platform, we aim to promote the increased consumption of plant-based foods, and we run campaigns that specifically focus on beans and lentils. I'm going to show you our latest campaign that we partnered with the US Dry Bean Council. I warn you, it's a video mostly of me eating. So the latest campaign that we ran at the end of November and December, called Innovate Your Plate, was a competition across Thailand using our network of restaurants to challenge them to create the most innovative and exciting dishes as possible using beans and lentils. So I'm just going to, I warn you again, this is just me eating. Did it play?
Hi, I'm Joanna from Root the Future, and this is the Innovate Your Plate restaurant competition. The mission of this competition is to highlight the sustainability of plant foods, specifically pulses, and prove that they're not only superfood powerhouses, but also that they can be used to create the most exciting, delicious, and innovative dishes that no one ever thought possible. And we're going to take you with us to taste and judge all the plant-powered innovative dishes from around Thailand. Let's go taste them!
So we're just here at Kane's Plant-Based Culinary Lab, which is just outside of Bangkok, and we're here to try their two pulses dishes. So we just got the first dish, and this is the beans dish, and it's foie gras stuffed gnocchi. Amazing, look at that. Just by looking at it, I can tell this is very high on the scale for innovation, that is for sure. Oh, it smells so good. I can't believe that's beans. This is the second dish, and this is the pâté en croûte, and the pâté inside is made from chickpeas and lentils and also mushrooms as well, and there's even like vegan caviar on top. So many layers of flavour. So they've somehow managed to replicate that very distinct pâté flavour, a little bit sweet and a little bit sour, like super salty. Amazing.
What epic innovation. Let's go to the next plate. So we're just here at the Earthling Cafe in Ekamai, and we're going to go and try their two innovative pulse dishes.
It's made from chickpea, lentils, black beans and red kidney beans, and they've even got fermented lentils on top. So the chefs are saying this is like super high protein because there's so many different types of pulses in there. It feels really wholesome. I love the idea of making katsu from Whole Foods. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So we've got the black bean brownie, we've got navy bean ice cream, and also a chickpea fudge. Whoa. That's really smooth.
Like a mousse. The base is even richer.
Crunchy, really rich brownie. It's
We've got a few more places to go, so let's go try some more Pulse Innovation. So we're just here at Suananda Vegetarian Garden Cafe, and we're about to try 2 of their US Pulse's innovative dishes. I think they're both kind of fusion dishes, so let's go and try. So we're just here in Suananda's garden, and we've got the 2 US Pulses dishes, and they both look so amazing. Really beautiful presentation. So we've got the Trio Lentils Crepe, and it comes with a lentil buttermilk, which also has cashews in it. And then we've got the amazing looking lima bean panna cotta. And that crepe is such a nice fluffy texture on the outside. This is the lentil and cashew buttermilk. That's so fragrant. Oh, and like light and refreshing, which I really didn't expect from like a cashew lentil buttermilk. Ooh. Oh wow, it's creamy.
Like you taste the bean, but it's creamy.
Regular panna cotta is not particularly healthy, obviously, but this is like mostly beans. So not only is it packed full of protein, but it's a really healthy version as well that still tastes like really creamy and delicious. So good.
So that's a short version, if you can believe it. There's actually a 20-minute version. We had some amazing restaurants entering with some unbelievable dishes. I'm not sure if you could hear that, but we had foie gras made from beans. Obviously, all of this is completely plant-based as well. What else did we have? We had, butterbean ice cream, some amazing things. So, getting that hype and excitement really inspired these restaurants. And obviously, talking in Thailand about the power that these restaurants have, because not many people cook at home, it's so exciting to see so many restaurants being excited about beans and creating some amazing things that, I mean, who would have thought foie gras stuffed gnocchi from beans? Amazing. And in a couple of weeks in Bangkok, we're going to be hosting a chef's table with influencers and media to showcase the winners and hopefully build even more buzz around beans and what they can do and how amazing they can taste. We've also done a couple of other campaigns over the last couple of months, such as running a kind of comedy-focused TVC-style video on the mass transit system in Bangkok, basically just making beans the kind of climate superhero. Lots of, and also Max and I, who was up here before, we did a very stupid thing of cycling from Chiang Mai to Phuket in 10 days, powered by garbanzo beans, basically, and just to show that they can obviously not only taste amazing and be great for the environment, but also support some really stupid physical activities. But you can check the full video out if you're interested to see all the amazing dishes on our Instagram, Root the Future. Next. So there's some of the amazing dishes that were created. Can you see that on the main screen? Yeah, there we go. One of the restaurants also created a coleslaw from navy beans, the lima bean panna cotta, which was amazing, garbanzo bean cheese, some chickpea truffle, just amazing. Okay. So to round this up, just briefly want to mention some things that we've been seeing from trade shows across Asia as well over the past couple of years. Obviously, the spike in kind of interest in plant-based food has been crazy over the last couple of years, especially in Asia and Thailand. Over the last 3 years, we've just seen a ridiculous increase in demand for plant-based food, which obviously goes hand in hand for the increased consumption of beans. So you can imagine there's a huge opportunity for beans there when there's an increased consumption of plant-based foods. At Singapore FHA Expo and TIFEX, we saw some, specifically garbanzo beans, chickpeas. We saw some amazing things like chickpea milk, fava beans made from eggs. People are really beginning to realize the properties of beans and all the different ways in which they can be used to pioneer the plant-based space to create milks, egg, chicken. Some amazing things happening. So obviously the interest in sustainability, as we were talking before, for the younger generation, it seems like that's the gateway kind of drug to get people interested in plant-based foods specifically. And also health and weight loss is just a really big part of that for the younger generation. Like I said before, the older generation are kind of already on the bean train. But the interest in sustainability, coupled with health, coupled with the opportunity to reach the masses via social media, and KOLs and influencers had opened a huge door for rebranding beans and remarketing beans as well. So there's never been a better time to walk through this door. I promised I wouldn't do any puns, but there was one. Thanks for listening.
Let's give another noisy and hard round of applause for our speakers. Let's show our bean power. Come on. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Chef Juanma, and thank you, Joanna, to showing us and inspiring us and making us to think outside of the box. So we will leave the room for questions. Please feel free to raise your hand and do your questions. I have one, and I would like to, it's for the three of us. Feel free to answer. Anyone? What do you think has been so difficult for cities and regions to address the relationship between food, health, and sustainability, mostly in our Latin American countries? Why, guys? Why do you think that it's? I mean, we have seen like these great examples, but in our markets, in Latin American markets, I would say that is not like a big hit. What do you think?
I think I think mostly infrastructure and roads, because in more developed countries where more logistics, roads, and infrastructure is developed, less people come to live to the cities and abandon the rural zones. So you have more atomized communities and less centralized cities like in Latin America, for example. Actually, Colombia, it's one of the worst infrastructure countries with the infrastructure, but it has more than 11 or 12 cities with more than 2 million or 1.5 million people in them. But for example, when you see a country like Argentina, like Bolivia, like Peru, they are even more atomized with less cities with more than 1.5 million people. And I think that one of the biggest challenges in Latin America is infrastructure, so you can keep people in the countryside and not with more opportunities that they don't have to seek in the cities.
Guys, what do you think?
I mean, I don't feel like I can answer in terms of Latin America, but in the UK, one of my favorite writers, B. Wilson, wrote a book and published a book recently called The Way We Eat Now. And in it, she talks about food environments and how it's the environment that we live in that dictates how we eat. And of course, Nick Buettner was tapping into that this morning within his talk. And that's the truth, right, when it comes down to it. I mean, some people call these spaces food deserts. Other people use more strong language like food apartheid, where people just don't have access to good food. And they're surrounded by an environment of hyper-processed foodstuffs. And that's, in a way, often supported by governments and corporations because that's where the money is. So I think getting real and honest about that and changing those environments like Nick is with his Blue Zone community work is the way to go.
Thank you, Tom. Joanna?
In terms of cultural barriers, I think that it's a very big and complicated topic because food is such an emotional thing, and often in a lot of countries as well, more kind of meat-based, animal-based protein is associated with kind of being more affluent. So trying to convince people that, you know, switching to more plant-based proteins like beans can be a really tricky and complicated subject to approach. But I think that the whole kind of rebranding beans as a kind of I think that the way we value food at the moment in terms of how much it costs to create shouldn't necessarily reflect the value of the food. I think the food value kind of perception is a really important thing that we need to change. Just because beans can be cheap does not mean they're not valuable. In fact, the opposite, they need less resources, which is why they're cheaper. So yeah, rebranding that whole kind of what foods we eat to become seen as more affluent, I think is a really big challenge. And it's a really difficult one to approach because it's such an emotional topic. Yes, I think that's a really big challenge and very complicated, but I think we can get there with rebranding the reasons why certain foods are seen as valuable.
Yeah, definitely. Do we have questions for our audience? I don't see hands.
¿Algunas preguntas? Aquí estoy atrás. Nada más levanten su mano y voy a ustedes con el micrófono. ¿No?
I was hearing you guys, and it came to my mind another question. It's about, how chefs can help low-income households eat more in a sustainable way. I mean, we know that this message goes to a specific popularity and population. So it's not reflected in those low-income families. So how do you think that, from traditional dishes to high cuisine, we can help to this low-income household to get this message?
Food accessibility is a real issue, and it can be quite hard as a food writer to speak to every audience because, of course, we have a duty to, in a way, speak to every audience and make our food accessible. And actually, accessibility is a core belief of mine. When I was writing my Root to Fruit manifesto, which is a food sustainability philosophy, one of the key points of that was to cook with love, confidence, and creativity. Because sometimes, although chefs are great at helping people discover a new ingredient or way to cook it, they can sometimes complicate food too when they're writing recipes for the public, because they might include many different ingredients. They might not allow for any flexibility within the recipe. And so this idea of cooking with love, confidence, and creativity is important to share, I think, and to promote as a chef, along with accessible and affordable ingredients within recipes. But of course, not every food writer or chef can do that, because we all have our audience, right?
Is my microphone on? Yeah, there we go. I think chefs as well play such an important part, because no matter what type of restaurant the food is being served in, they're pioneering the way that we eat. So, for example, if chefs can be the ones to pioneer the way that the traditional dishes are now made with more plant-based protein, then they can be leaders for everybody else to follow. And obviously, these foods can be made in similar ways and served in different scenarios. And then, for example, in Bangkok, served as street food, more traditional dishes. They're following the way where chefs have maybe used beans instead of animal protein. So I think chefs are very important, because they are the pioneers, and they have the freedom to be able to pioneer these dishes from more sustainable foods like beans.
Yeah, definitely. I think recipes like the superpower pancakes that Chef Juanma was telling us, maybe we can share that kind of recipes to more people in order to understand this concept.
Jose, we have a question here, please.
Yes, please.
Actually, is also answering the question you make about the gaps between sustainability, availability of food, and health food. One thing that surprised me after listening to the program of the schools and the army diets. So one of the it impacted me because we don't have such a program in Colombia. So the programs that can be either private or public that enhances and produce that offer to schools and different communities like the army are the ones who are really closing that gap because they are being taught about, given the opportunity to have different offerings and in nutrition in part of the food that they are being offered. So those programs, it really impacted me because those are the ones who really reach very big publics. Of course, the woman, I forgot, Kate, I think that was, it has to be tasteful and delicious to be offered programs like that. So it's trying to answer. And one thing, the panel and Juan Manuel and the group, we invite you to try. We brought some yellow bean tart. We only have one yellow variety in Colombia. It's called Livorino. We are doing some work. It's a product of origin, and you are very welcome to try the tart of Livorino. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
¿Alguna otra pregunta? Manos por ahí? ¿No?
Questions, comments? I do have another one, if I may. So I always curious about, how chefs and foodies and people related to food industry, it's been trained, and it comes to my mind, the next question is how we can help to transform the mainstream culinary education in line with the knowledge and skill that chefs need for more sustainable food future, right? Because I have been in culinary institutions, and we don't see this topic that much as we are discussing it today. And you guys that are chefs and somehow are related to the cuisine, what do you think that we need to change in terms of education and training?
I think the chefs can probably answer this better than I can, but I think the first thing is just changing public perception, like overall mainstream perception of sustainability when it comes to food and also beans. I think that's the first battle, because once you have kind of widespread awareness, that's when more chefs are going to start kind of talking about this and starting more implementing this into kind of courses and schools. But I think maybe the chefs can answer this better than I can.
One thing is approaching cooking schools, which are really easy to map, and start making some changes in the pensums of their careers or degrees in order to understand sustainability and how to approach that sustainability through cooking with more sustainable ingredients. The second is a word that Joanna mentioned before, is FOMO, fear of missing out. And I think when chefs are called to create trends, chefs are innovators that propose, and many times we have mistakes, and many times we do dishes that people don't like. But at the end, it's not about if you like a dish or not that I did, is that I always keep pushing those boundaries of creativity. So when you create, in the luxury business of food, a trend, then that trend downloads to the mainstream market. And one of a good example that I can imagine right now is, for example, the pasta with white sauce and truffle. You can you wherever you go to any Italian restaurant, they will serve you like an Alfredo sauce with truffle. But that 10 years ago wasn't in all the Italian restaurants because not everybody had truffles in the restaurants. So the way the truffle download to the mainstream market was through truffle oils. So now you get an Alfredo with a truffle oil, and then you have a truffle oil or a truffle white pasta. And that's the way you download. So for me, I think the other way is to approach high-end fine dining chefs to start creating a trend, and then the trend will download by himself to the mainstream market.
So, yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I'll just add really quickly. I teach sometimes at Le Cordon Bleu and a few other schools in the UK, and when I'm invited to kind of teach food sustainability or sustainable nutrition, I'm always surprised that it's not how the course is run now, and it like needs to catch up. But these establishments are in the UK at least are changing and are bringing in new sustainability courses, but they're still kind of separate courses. And I think what really needs to happen is an overhaul of the whole educational system to become sustainable and for it to be within its DNA.
So thank you, guys. Do we have another question?
Yes, Jose. We have one here, please.
Hola, hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Javier. Yo me gustaría preguntarles, como estudiante universitario, que no tengo bagaje en el ámbito de la gastronomía, ¿qué recomendación o qué consejo me darían para entrar en este mundo y sobre todo para tener más conocimiento con los frijoles? Me gustaría que de pronto me recomendaran alguna receta o que investiguen en las redes algún tipo de plato que me gustaría de pronto hacerlo, no sé, me gustaría escuchar sus consejos y sus palabras. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. ¿Me puedes repetir tu nombre, por favor?
Javier Arteaga.
Javier. So Javier is he's a student, and he's asking how he can learn more about, plant-based food and how he can start. He loved the topic, and as a student, how can he get more knowledge about this topic?
Was that question for me? I assume. I think social media, I hate to say it again, but social media is a really great place to start. Root the Future is a really good place to look, but I mean, that's based, obviously, Thailand. I think a really good place to start as well is social media, and also just visiting some of the plant-based offerings in your city as well. Kind of exploring recipes, even if you don't want to cook them, just kind of seeing what's out there, seeing what restaurants there are, having a look on social media, seeing what's happening. I think that's a really good place to start. And even just kind of exploring your local supermarkets and seeing what's there. I personally love doing that. Whenever I go to a new country, the first thing I'll do is go into the supermarket and see what there is. But that's a really good place to start, and just kind of seeing what's out there. And yeah, social media, hate to say it, but if there are any influencers or KOLs in your city that are kind of talking about this, such a valuable resource to look there first. Yeah.
I think as well, I mean, cookbooks. There's so many amazing plant-based cookbooks out there, and they're an incredible resource. And I mean, they cost a bit, but Kindle versions are more economical, I think, especially if you don't know entirely the food writer and you're trying to discover someone new. But yeah.
In my case, I will the way we do it is we apply different techniques from other ingredients to the beans. So you buy beans and start applying different techniques where you can find them in cookbooks or in YouTube. So if you're gonna do, I don't know, a chocolate chip cookie with flour, you can have 30% of bean flour and 70% of wheat flour, and then you do the cookie, and maybe it will be a very nice cookie or a mess. So you start trying until you get the recipe right.
Yeah, and I will say as well that I think start to reading the chef manifesto. It's also a good way to understand, how food and sustainability are related to. So yeah, you can go to internet and search chef manifesto, and you will learn, the pillars of food and sustainability we refer to. So unfortunately, we are running out of time. Thank you, our panelists and speakers of this last session. And thank you guys for being here in Medellin and Colombia. And we look forward to have you again here. Thank you.